Good to be back again. We are coming to a close to our considerations on anthropology. We are talking about the matter of sin in man. Hamartiology is actually another subject dealt separately in many theological textbooks and seminaries, but in other places it is included with anthropology because since man sinned, that's what remains in man basically. So we have decided to put our considerations on sin with anthropology. The big question about sin is, how could a sinless man sin? Second is, what is sin? To the first question, could a sinless person sin actually? Because the motivation for sin came from where? If he is sinful. We all sin because we are sinners. So, there's no problem. But for Adam, he had no sin nature. He was created a perfect, holy person. So where the motivation has come? Well, Lucifer was created holy. It was possible for him to sin. Where did the motivation come for him? The same way for man also. The motivation comes from within man's thinking and mind, because man is a thinking being. If God did not program man in such a way that he can think only good thoughts, if that was the way man was programmed, then man won't be properly man, because he will be another animal, just like, cow can eat only grass because it is programmed. The same way man can think only good thoughts. Even saved people and very spiritual people can think wrong thoughts and evil thoughts, because that's part of our thinking ability. The capacity to think is neutral. It can be used negatively or positively. So God created man holy does not mean that he was confirmed in holiness. Now there is a group of angels whom we call the holy angels. They cannot today sin even if they want. That is what is generally thought. Why is that? Why one of the angels, Gabriel, cannot sin today? They say that they passed the probation. The same way, if Adam ate the fruit of the tree of life without eating the tree of knowledge, Adam would have come to a state where he won't be able to sin, because he was confirmed in holiness. Means he made a choice not to sin anymore. And God made an arrangement for that system, honoring his choice. But man has chosen to do evil, therefore man is having that capacity. And one day we will be confirmed in holiness when our bodies will be transformed, when Christ comes back. Then, we will not be sinning. The question of people ask, even if we want to, the answer to that is nobody wants to. Nobody wants to. Because that desire is taken away. Man comes to a glorious condition where, the question is, could God sin? He is a totally free person. If God wants to sin today, can he sin? No, God cannot sin. Why? That means he is limited. So we say it's not that God cannot sin, or God is not able to sin. God is able not to sin. That's the difference. God is not able to sin. God is able not to sin. That we don't have. We are not able not to sin. At this stage we are able to sin, but we will be promoted to a state where it will be said that glorified man is able not to sin. The ability not to sin we don't have now. It does not mean that we have to sin, not that. we have the sin nature today, but when the sin nature will be taken away and we will be confirmed in holiness, then that ability will come. And God is only one person who is able not to sin. That's impeccability of God's nature. We are peccable, means we are liable to sin.
What is the difference with the other? God is not able.
Yeah. I am able not to sin, or I am not able to sin. And when say I am not able to sin, it's an ability. I am not able. I am able not to sin is my ability. Right? Yeah. So it's not God's inability, it's God's ability not to sin. We have to come to that state. That will come only when we will be glorified. So, how is it possible for a holy creature like man, when he was created, to sin? That's part of humanity. Yes. Man was created with the capacity of thinking. That capacity includes both sides. Man was never given the freedom to think evil. I don't think God ever said that, I give you the freedom to think evil. No. Man was told not to. It was a prohibition. So when there is a prohibition, we cannot say he had the freedom, because prohibition is always against the freedom. But man was created with the capacity or the ability to do things. We are all able to do many things. Any human being can shoot another person or stab another person. That's our ability. But that does not mean that every person has to stab somebody because he has the ability. So the ability is a neutral idea. When you use the ability, your ability for negatives, it's bad. When you use the ability for good, a surgeon uses the same thing. He cuts and wounds. But that ability he uses positively. A butcher also uses the ability positively. He cuts and wounds the meat and cut it. But when that ability is used against a man, then it's a misuse of his ability. So man was created with the ability. People like to call it the freedom of the will. Well, if you understand it properly, no problem. But if you mean to say that God created man with the freedom, he can do anything he wants, God will honor it. That's what freedom is. It's just like I have two candies in my hand and I call a child and say, take whatever you want. He has taken the one on the left hand and slapped him. Why do you take it? But, uncle, you said take whatever you want. God never told Adam, there are two trees, eat whatever you want. No, he said, don't eat this. Don't eat this, you will die. If I told you, don't take this candy, just take this one, and he took this, then I can give him a slap. He has the ability to take, but he didn't have the freedom to take. That's exactly what happened to man also. He had the ability to eat, but he didn't have the freedom to eat. So people say that man was created morally free to do whatever he wants. Then I said, God who gave that freedom has to honor him. Has to call Adam and say, very good Adam, you exercise your freedom, I honor it. It's very good. But that's not what God did. That's not what. So, some of these theological terms like the freedom of the will and all that, Now today, the same thing. Nobody is free to kill or to murder or commit adultery or steal or anything. Nobody is free. But everybody has the ability to do that. What God wants? God wants our ability to be used for doing good. Our ability has to be surrendered to, God's will. I have to use my ability to do God's will. That's what God is desiring. God does not want me to force, make me a slave and say that, hold a gun against me and that if you do anything against my will, I will shoot you. No, God only told me that, do my will. That is best for you. I don't have the freedom not to do it, but I have the ability. I have to make a choice on my ability. Ability is like a knife. Use it for surgery, use it for cutting vegetables, or use it for the wrong purpose. If you use it for the wrong purpose, I misuse of my ability, not a misuse of my freedom, because I never given the freedom to cut somebody's throat. So we should never have the idea that God created man morally free. When we mean to say that when God created man morally free, simply mean to say that man was given the ability and the choice to use the ability with all the consequences. That's what it is. It is not the freedom. If God gave man the freedom, then God should honor that freedom. Just like say that, take any candy you want, then I should honor you. Take it, okay son, have it. I cannot slap him. Because then, having given him the freedom to choose, then I am not honoring that freedom. That will be wrong. So God never does that. So that's the one question. How could, man sin? So man sinned because he has chosen to use his ability to do the will of Satan as opposed to do the will of God. And we are all given ability, and God desires that we use our ability to serve God. That's why in Romans chapter 6 and many other chapters, submit your members as instruments of righteousness. That is for us. We have to use our ability. We have the ability to use our will, submit it to do God's will. And if we misuse it, God will punish us because He already warned us. The second question is, okay, man has misused that, his ability, and he became a sinner. So we have seen in detail how sin passed from, the first parents to all humanity, the traducianism and all the other, wrong teachings of, creationism and all that we have seen it. So we have now the sin nature in us, So in the presence of the sin nature, how much it affects us? How much it affects us? Did it totally corrupt our personality and every part of our being? Or it is something that has corrupted only certain areas of our personality? Is it total inability and total depravity, or is it partial inability and partial depravity? This is what theologians, debate. The Armenians in general say that it is only partial. Man is still, able to do many things he wants, including able to plan for his own salvation. Man is able to decide whether he wants Jesus Christ, wants to believe, and all these things. And the others say that no, man is totally depraved and therefore totally, enabled. Means man's intellect, emotion, will, and every faculty of his personality is corrupted by sin. There is no part of humanity that is not corrupted. Everything, so that man cannot do anything to please God, without God's grace. If man ever pleases God, it is only because God gives him the grace to overcome that inability and do something. So the total depravity on one side and no total depravity on the other side. The so-called Armenians generally do not believe in total depravity. Yes. But the Calvinists very strongly believe in total depravity and total inability. There is none righteous, no, not one. Everyone is, and in me there is no goodness. My throat is a sepulcher. It's completely out of the heart of man comes out that list of sins, evil thoughts, and all kinds of sin. It's all we are completely and totally, woe unto me. That's what the saints always said. Nobody said, I'm a clean man. God, I still have the ability to please you. Everybody cried out saying, "Oh, unto me, have mercy on me." Have mercy on me. Paul described himself the chiefest of sinners. And we know that Paul was one of the better Jewish people lived on the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in that era. Because he himself said, concerning the law, I am blameless. So concerning the law, he is blameless, but he is the chiefest of the sinners. See that? So that means the best that law could produce is the worst before God. There's nothing good in us. Nothing good. The little good that we often do, they are good for humanity. We can do charitable works and art works and medical works and all that. But they are not things that will please God to get merit from Him.
Now, if you read Cornelius' life,
Yes.
before his salvation, whatever he did was pleasing to God.
Well, very simple. That's very simple. Cornelius lived under the pagan system, but he was a proselyte into Judaism, except in the matter of circumcision. There were people who accepted Jehovah and the Old Testament, but they never became Jew by getting circumcision. And Cornelius was a man. So he was praying to Jehovah, and he was doing things that the law requires. And for such a man, God is a God who sees the motivation and all that, but that did not give him salvation. That only provided him an opportunity to hear the gospel.
Can you say he was totally depraved before?
He was totally depraved before, yes, like any other person. But God gave that totally depraved person because he has obeyed the truth he has known. He didn't know much.
But then he has already known some truth. No?
Yeah, he knew some truth, yes. He knew some.
If a person is totally depraved, he will not be able to.
Oh, he is able to know many truths. He is not able to do anything that will gain favor to go to heaven.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what.
Total depravity is on that.
Yeah, depravity is only in that level. Man is able in art and science and in all areas, charitable works like Mother Teresa. She has done so many good things. Who can say that what she has done is bad thing? No sensible person will say that, unless some political interest or something, they will say that. Otherwise, she has done good things. But that is not going to be merited for her salvation. That at best will give her an opportunity to hear the gospel so that she will believe. That's what Cornelius also gained. God gave him an opportunity. Call Peter, he will tell you things that are necessary for your salvation. That's it. So total depravity does not mean man is not able to do any good things. No, man is not able to do any things that will secure him God's favor for salvation. Nobody. So some people misunderstand that it means man is completely lost and he will only do bad things. No, he can do many things. Look, all the arts, the famous artists like Michelangelo was a great artist. He was totally depraved man. Yes, he was known to be a homosexual, but yet he was a great artist. There were men like that, some of the great artists and poets and all, they are such masterpieces. That ability was not, but he was not able to do anything by his heart. God will say that because he is an excellent artist, I am going to take him to heaven. That won't happen. That won't happen. If he will do God glorifying art, God may give him an opportunity to hear the gospel so that he can get saved. That's what it is. And total depravity means every aspect of man is affected by sin. That's what total depravity. Every aspect of man, his intellect, his emotion, his will, and every ability he has, everything is affected by sin. Total inability means he is not able to do anything to favor salvation by his own work. So totally depraved person is also a totally an enabled person. We are not able to do anything that will secure our salvation. Only by the grace of God we could
Like one of the arguments that I hear about Arminianism is if we are not able to choose God, because God commands many times that choose life before you are key, both life and death. So choose life is so we say that we have the capacity to choose life, otherwise why would God command it? So, but this is somewhat opposition.
Yes. All God's commandments are at the base level when God created man. Because whatever happened to humanity is the result of man's own choice. So God holds you responsible for everything from the way He created him. So was Adam able at the moment of creation to do these things? Yes. Then God holds him responsible, because he only jumped into the pit by himself. God is not going to bring down His commands and everything to the level of man in the pit. He commands at that level. No. So man is not able to respond, but then God gives the grace. That's where the only obligation God has to humanity is to send the sinner to hell. That is the only obligation. God should be a righteous God who will pay the wages for sin. Humanity has chosen sin, so God should be righteous to send everybody to hell. Otherwise say that you did not pay my wages, I have worked. God said, no, I'll give you full. The other is grace. So there man has no claim. That God's grace and mercy where man says, thank you, I don't deserve it, but you have been very kind and gracious to me. So hell will be declaring God's righteousness and heaven will be declaring God's grace and mercy. From heaven, hell, everybody say, we deserve it, we deserve it, we deserve it. From heaven, everybody will say, we don't deserve it, we don't deserve it, we don't deserve it. From both places, that will be there. In hell, nobody will say, including Satan, you are unrighteous. See, all the demons, when Jesus came to demon-possessed people, what was the cry they cried? Lord, are you going to punish us before time? When we deserve it. But are you going to punish us before time? We thought that we got 1 more hour to play. Not one of the demons said that why this unrighteous punishment given to us. No. They are all fully aware of their situation, what they deserve. So this is a case. So the Armenians were wrong, because Armenians were saying that these commandments are made, with a sinful man in view. No, God cannot lower the the beam, because man is not able to jump that high. God does not bring it down and down and down and down to 1 inch. That's what man does. God doesn't do that. God keep it there, and then He gives His grace to lift man and make him to jump. So we who jumped only because there was a hand behind us, pushing us up and throwing us on the other side. And of course, when we turned back after jumping over the what do you call that? Yeah, the bar, we turn back and we don't see the hand. Then only we go to the book and then we see, the hand is what did it. Most of our obedience are like the story, once a king was there, he wanted to test the loyalty of his soldiers. So he chose the best of 100 soldiers. Best of 100 soldiers in his whole country. Wanted to test their loyalty. They were asked to cross a river which was frozen, completely frozen. So the top is 2-3 inches ice, and bottom water is ice cold. They were to cross it. So 100 of them, one came and put his feet under the water, so cold, so he pulled it out and stood there. So the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the 99th one came, they all dipped their feet because it's extremely cold. Then the 100th one came, he jumped into it, and then of course his swam and reach the other side. So the king was very well pleased. Very well pleased, because this one soldier, he is loyal to me. So then king praised him and gave him special promotions and everything, and then he was given the opportunity for, return his toast, and then he said, I only have one question, who pulled me into the water? Somebody from the behind pulled him to the water, so he fell in the water and he said, anyway, I am already wet and all, let me cross. That's the way we cross the river. Somebody pulled us into it, otherwise we won't. So sometimes the best things we do, it's all by the grace of God. It's it's not out of our ability and all that. So the inability factor is a big factor. Pelagius was one person. You may have heard the name Pelagius mentioned many times. Pelagius was a monk. Pelagius was a person who said that the Adamic sin did not affect man, except that Adam gave him a bad example. That's it. The bad example of Adam affects some people, but the sin itself did not affect people. Whatever ability Adam had, the same ability man has, moral ability to make choices and all that. So he does not need any help from God. Actually, Pelagius will say the death of Jesus Christ is not for the salvation of humanity. Death of Jesus Christ is an example. Adam has shown us a bad example. Christ has shown us a good example. How we could, Adam had no need to yield to the temptation. Jesus Christ has shown us the example. Same way, Jesus Christ dying on the cross is the greatest example. How he loved his enemies and he prayed for his enemies. We should be doing the same thing. We don't need Jesus Christ for salvation. Every man is able to work his own salvation. There is no total inability and total depravity. It's only because of the bad example, some people follow that example. Yeah, that's it. So a child growing up in the home, what does he see? He sees the bad example of the parents. Okay, the father quarreling with the mother. He doesn't have to quarrel, but the child sees that example. So when he gets married, what he will do? He will start quarreling with his wife, because that's the example he had said. There is no need for that son to quarrel with his wife, but he does it because the example. Same way, man is not under any compulsion to sin. He does it only because the bad example. Well, sounds very good. Because that's what people like to accept. It's more acceptable to say that, it's a bad example. But it's not a bad example, because what man is there who has never sinned? The little child who is born, the second day, the very day that child is born, mother feeds the baby, hugs the baby, kisses the baby, warm clothes put on the baby, everything, and give a couple of kisses to the baby and lay down. Why the baby cry? Not wet, not hungry. Why the baby cry? The bad example of the father when he was that age to cry. The baby cried because the baby is a sinner. Selfishness, hold me. Mother say, I have many things to do, I don't care, hold me. Now I am the boss in this home. I'll decide when you will hold me. I decide when you can lay me down. Many mothers say that. What they say that? I couldn't do a thing today. This baby didn't permit me to do anything. I was to hold her. Can lay her down for a second. She started crying. No sicknesses. She's not wet. She's not hungry. The surrounding temperature is not high or too hot or too cold, simply because of the selfishness. If somebody will say that, well, that you don't take that as sin. I say that's the earliest, the innocent display of sin. So what most of the Americans will do, they will put it in the room and close the door. You cry there. They will cry there for half an hour, then stop crying. So a couple of days and then child understands that there is no use in this home because they are the boss here, I am not the boss. Indian children, they establish their authority in the home the day they are born. So somebody is carrying always, always. The baby decides